with the county hurling team. In all, there are just 3 links with the last Offaly side to face Dublin in the Championship 6 years ago. Pádraig Dunn at midfield, and 2 of the more lethal forwards, Peter Brady on the edge of the square, and Brendan Lowry, like Dunn, an All-Ireland medalist 10 years ago. Dublin introduce a new midfielder in Pat Gilroy. He's one of 2 Trinity College students in the side today. The other being Pádraig Doherty, who figured briefly in the Dublin Meath epic last summer. The overall combination, captained by Tommy Carr from cornerback, includes another fresh face, new to Championship, in Desi Farrell, top of the right. And in the absence of the indisposed Dave Foran, Paul Clarke reverts to the centre to form a new pairing with Gilroy. And taking charge is 41 years old Noel Whelan, a member of the St Mogues club from Featherdon-Sea in County Wexford. And there is a light breeze favouring Dublin in the first half as the band makes its way off. A big atmosphere, big crowd. Game delayed in all now for the best part of 15 minutes to allow latecomers get in. So it is going to be Dublin who will be favoured by the wind in the first half. Referee taking a last quick check on the watch. And so this first round match is underway, and it's Dublin's Paul Clarke launching the first attack in towards Vinnie Murphy. Vinnie Byrne going back there, that's booted in, a dramatic goal! Pádraig Doherty's very first touch. Well, what a start for Dublin. Just about 10 seconds gone. First attack, first goal.
I would think that this would be Dublin's policy anyway for the whole game, to pump the ball in and hope for the best with the conditions the way they are. It's a great start for Pádraig Doherty in his first championship game.
Heary doubling on this one as Doherty up there with Vinnie Murphy trying to collect once more. Breaks instead over towards the corner. Desi Farrell flinging it across. Jack Sheedy, 2 attacks, 2 scores for Dublin. Jack Sheedy with the point, and you get the feeling that Dublin mean business. What an assertive start this has been.
Fantastic ball by Desi Farrell across the goal, an ideal, played it back to Jack Sheedy coming running in, and an excellent point for Dublin.
Well, the young Offaly goalkeeper Adrian Daly here, former Tullamore player, now in his 2nd year playing with Rode. And what a baptism he's had already in this match. Offaly saying before the game they wanted to make the best possible start. They've made a wretched start on this, and wrestling going on the 45-metre line, which referee Noel Whelan has spotted. And he's going to consult with the linesman, who may have had a view of that. So the linesman having the word with the official. Tempers flaring up inside the first 2 minutes of the game. Referee calling across Paul Curran, having a quick word with him. Curran is marking Mick Devine. Yep, all this off-the-ball incidents, quite unsavoury. Jimmy Stewart there against Charlie Redmond as Davy Reynolds fires it in, and he's put it wide. First wide of the match for Offaly from their first attack, virtually. I can't help feeling that the needle early on is perhaps caused by Dublin's excellence in those 2 opening scores and a degree of frustration from Offaly's point of view. Edged in mid-air splendidly by Pádraig Dunn. Dropping it in towards Brendan Lowry. He's overhit that one. John O'Leary making the catch. Distributed to Mick Deegan. No delaying in knocking that one clear. Now Curran. And the linesman here signalling that it's going to be a sideline ball for Offaly. Stewart. That's belted clear by Paul Clarke. Gathered here by Finbar Cullen. Nicely forward. Now Peter Brady, a player they're really going to look to this afternoon, on towards Mark Plunkett, having difficulty holding on. He was being impeded. So a free kick from a very promising position. Davy Reynolds, if he opts to take this one. In fact, he's going to leave it instead to Brendan Lowry. should be Offaly's first score. But with the breeze in his face, he stabs at it and puts it over the bar. So an unfaltering kick there from Brendan Lowry to register Offaly's first point of the afternoon.
Yes, this point will help to settle down Offaly after the disaster start. They also have made a couple of switches in attack before the game started. Sean Brennan is playing centre forward on Keith Barr, and Michael Devine has moved over on Paul Curran. The suggestion would be that these two players would help stop the Dublin half-backs attacking.
So let's see what develops. Jack Sheedy going back, foraging on the very greasy conditions, because we had a downpour here all through lunch hour and right up to about 2:30, 2:45. Played on neatly here for Pat Gilroy to get onto. Just miscuing with his first attempt for a point. Very big, tall fellow. Well, they were expecting an attendance of round about 15,000. I think they would be quite pleased that in spite of the inclement conditions earlier on that we spoke of, the big attendance has materialised. Gilroy again taking up a good position. Ambitiously across, Vinnie Murphy reacting very quickly. They seem that little bit faster in the full forward line. Daly misjudging, and Doherty was coming in, and Desi Farrell was in there appealing for a penalty, which didn't come. And we've seen that Porrick Doherty is a very menacing forward, takes up very good positions.
A bad kick out by Adrian Daly caused the problem, but it was a great ball across to the other side of the field by Pat Gilroy to Vinnie Murphy. When the ball goes in there, well, I don't know whether the goalie lets it go or it hops over his head, but Garrett O'Brien was caught on the wrong side of his man, and just the same as he was for the goal.
Mark Dunkett back at midfield. Dublin leading by that goal. Tommy Carr under it in there. He'll give that full back line added pace. Keith Barr now. Goes down by Sean Grennan. Barr still bursting his way forward. Winning the free kick. And again there you see tempers flaring somewhat. That's now Guyden there at the receiving end. It's kicked in well. Vinnie Murphy reaches high. Charlie Redmond should be a second, but it is. Well, it's a dream start. 2 goals inside 7 minutes. And even if they'd wished for this or dreamed for it, they couldn't possibly imagine that it would be realised.
Well, the Dublin tactics are fairly straightforward. They're going to pump the ball in. Conditions are bad. Nobody's going to be catching. Charlie Redmond coming in on the break. And it's a great shot, because goalkeepers in cases like that have often a 50-50 chance of stopping it, but not a shot like that.
Well, Adrian Daly on his championship debut looks absolutely crestfallen. Dublin's Dr. Pat Duggan in there attending to an injured player. And Dr. Pat O'Neill there on the left-hand side, one of the 3 selectors. They had a lot of problems in the build-up to this match with injuries and so on. Might be Keith Barr. It is Keith Barr. They're very strong teak turf centre half back. Tommy Carr going across to the linesman. I could only assume that it's to wonder whether the linesman saw the incident that felled Keith Barr. And the linesman is in, and the referee has now picked up an injury. May well have come crashing in to one another in the incident just a moment ago. So the referee, with blood streaming down from a cut over his right eye, Noel Whelan here, who handled last year's Leinster minor football final, requiring just a little attention. Well, it's a strange sight. Keith Barr back on his feet again, but the referee now has certainly required some attention. Keith Barr still in some distress. Oh, this is the first time I can recall a referee lying prostrate like this and requiring some attention. Keith Barr's collapsed once again. Really is in considerable distress. I saw him pick up an injury some time ago when he was thundering out from his centre-back position. Well, poor Noel Whelan certainly bearing the scars of battle and receiving a very generous round of applause. Referees so often the butt of insults and jokes, but there's no doubting the sincerity of the applause here. But sadly, Keith Barr forced out of the match because of an injury. This was the incident that led up to the Keith Barr injury. Tackled as he was making his way out there, and eventually fell and knocked over. So Dublin now making their change, and it's Kieran Walsh, who played in the championship last year against Meath, coming in. And the referee Noel Whelan bandaged, bloodied and unbowed and so on.
Keith Barr may appear to be a big loss to Dublin, and of course he is a superb player, but they have Tommy Carr to fill in at centre half back, so it's not as big a disaster as it might be to a lot of teams.
Jack Sheedy now thundering forward again, a high shoulder which the referee deems to be quite unfair on Jack Sheedy, and that on the 45-metre line. Well, the travelling Dublin fans have seen some dramatic events happening in this match. Charlie Redmond to take this free kick. He of course was the player replaced in the league semi-final against Tyrone for the last couple of minutes when they really missed his free kicking skills. Going towards the left hand side, fisted down, and Beelan comes in, blocked. Eventually taken away there by the fullback Garrett O'Brien. Offaly playing themselves out of trouble with neat, attractive football. Pádraig Dunn now, I'm sure, encouraged to pump the ball in again. An incident involving two players, and the Offaly man down here injured. Charlie Redmond down injured as well. Well, there's a real needle and an edge in this. At times they look like they're just collapsing over one another.
Well, every time the ball goes in high into the Offaly backs, there seems to be a great deal of panic. And this ball is broken down, and it could have ended up in the net as well. It was blocked out very well and worked up the field, but the Offaly back's in a bit of panic every time there's a high ball. That's
Tom Coffey then getting himself back on his feet again. The victim of an incident just a moment ago with Charlie Redmond, all eyes on the ball, racing down. They came across one another. An attempted shoulder by Tom Coffey was ill-judged. It didn't come off at all. He certainly came off second best. Meanwhile, back, it's Kieran Walsh, pushed. A game which has been littered with stoppages and free kicks so far. Pádraig Dunn beaten at midfield. Charlie Redmond against Jimmy Stewart, Offaly captain. And Jimmy Stewart and Charlie Redmond continue their aggro, and it really is quite senseless. Dunbar Cullen explaining that it was an elbow by the opposition, and the referee wants Charlie Redmond on his feet to take the name. So the goal scorer after 7 minutes has his name recorded by the bandaged official, and Jimmy Stewart also having his name recorded.
Well, that has been going on from the beginning of the game with Jimmy Stewart and Charlie Redmond, but the fact that the referee has booked him now probably will stop it.
Referee then opting to throw the ball in as Mark Plunkett knocks it downfield. Jerry Hargan back up to Pat Gilroy into the corner towards Desi Farrell there against Tom Coffey, and again the sharpness of the Dublin inside forward line illustrated once more. Desi Farrell holding up the point of the attack, nicely inside. Gilroy on his debut kicks it over the bar, and that'll certainly please the St Vincent's man, and Dublin under-21 star as well.
Another very well worked point for Dublin. Desi Farrell holding on to the ball long enough to put it across to Pat Gilroy, but terrible marking there by Pádraig Dunn, caught completely off his man. Offaly trying to rectify their problems at the back by switching Garrett O'Brien and Ken Keelan, but they may be 10 minutes late.
The pressure once again on the Offaly backs, but this time it's going to be a free kick to Offaly. Jack Sheedy punted forward to Desi Farrell again in the clear. He kicked it over the bar and he had another option, and perhaps was the wisest course of action to take his point, but Pádraig Doherty was free just to his left-hand side, and there might have been well in for another goal.
Well, the Offaly backs are in complete panic at this stage. A very bad free out there by Tom Coffey. The ball is given back to the man who he's supposed to be marking, and there was a goal chance on there if he wanted to draw out one of the backs, but probably took the safer option, and with Dublin leading by so much, points for them will do at this stage.
That's Pádraig done. I think it dropped, but regrouping. This is Peter Brady. Can he be the player to lead them back? A long, long way to go. Brady again, staying on his feet, finding Davy Reynolds. They need a score here. That really is senseless football. Kieran Walsh taking him down, and the referee having no option whatsoever but to take the name of the substitute. And this is really Gaelic football at its most unpleasant.
A very silly foul by Kieran Walsh there on Dave Reynolds, because in these sort of conditions, any tackle by a back will put a forward off from scoring. He's given Offaly a relatively easy chance to score now, and has also been booked.
So 5 names have been taken. Brendan Lowry having the chance to look for and score a second point. Mind you, he actually gave John O'Leary a little chance perhaps of saving it, but in the end John O'Leary quite content to help it on its way over the bar. And a change is being considered. And it looks like Offaly are preparing to bring into their side Pádraig Moran from Clara, the county champions. And it looks like Tom Coffey is the player whom they're anxious to replace. Pádraig Moran then making his way onto the side, and coming in there to take up duty against Desi Farrell. Nicely up by Guyden towards Charlie Redmond. Tried to dance his way around would-be tackles, and again they are so good at finding space. Paul Clark belting it over. The 2 midfielders now getting the scores. Well, Paul Clark could never have been sure of his place in the Dublin midfield, such as the competition for places. When it comes to engineering space on this wide-open confines of O'Connor Park, he's so adept.
Considering the conditions, Dublin are playing absolutely brilliant football. Another great crossfield pass there by Charlie Redmond to Paul Clark. Again, there was men over, could have been a goal, but he takes a point. But Dublin are playing great football, letting the ball move and kicking great passes across the width of the pitch.
Taken by Vincent Claffey here. The attentions of Eamon Heary. Now Jimmy Stewart for Offaly, and Offaly's side with just 2 points from Brendan Lowry's free kicking so far, and now they got a first from play from their team captain and wing-back Jimmy Stewart. And he's shown his ability to come forward and attack on a few occasions in this match.
It's taken Offaly a long time to get a score from play, and it's taken a half back to do it, but even though they have got a point, they're adopting completely the wrong tactics in a game like this. They're playing the ball low into forwards coming out who are having difficulty in coping with a back and the ball coming under greasy conditions. So they would be much better off to let the ball do the work as Dublin are doing.
To what extent do you think the conditions are militating against decent play? And by that I mean, do you think the players are going out there with the right intention to tackle fairly, but the conditions are making it difficult for them?
Well, I think there's no problem having a good game in bad conditions. Dublin are playing great football despite bad conditions because they're using the ball very well, and Offaly just haven't got the grips of the game at all at this stage.
This is Desi Farrell advancing, again looking for another score. Off the post, and it's come down, fisted Pádraig Doherty was coming in there, and Adrian Daly making a good save. He's fouled, and it's going to be a free kick for Offaly. But again, another illustration of the porous nature of the Offaly backline against a very clever and sharp and incisive Dublin forward side.
Well, again, Desi Farrell is causing a lot of problems here, and he's a bit unfortunate when his effort comes back off the post. But Dublin have a decided advantage in that full forward line, in that every one of the inside trio are able to beat their men for possession, and I think they all have a little bit of a physical advantage as well in sheer size and strength.
Pádraig Doherty, grateful to see that Peter Brady had taken up a good position. Pass delivered inside to Clappy. Now Brady once again back towards Vincent Clappy. Still going through, stopped in the end, and a free kick for Offaly and a chance for a fourth point. And the referee, because of the protest by Dublin and not retreating fast enough, has brought it to the 13-metre line or just about. And a very, very kickable position now for Davy Reynolds to record his first point. So the left footer should be able to slot this one over John O'Leary's crossbar. 2 goals between the teams. Offaly 4 points, Dublin 2 goals and 4. Well, Tommy Carr started the match at left corner back, now out around the centre half back spot, where of course he's absolutely no stranger. Indeed, 6 years ago when the teams met last in the championship, he was at full forward for Dublin. It's Paul Clark with that shot inside. Gareth O'Brien has fumbled, and it's Guyden once again in the clear, kicking and scoring. Elementary mistakes in greasy conditions being made by the Offaly backs and being punished mercilessly by Dublin.
Well, in normal conditions, I suppose that would be a relatively easy catch for Gareth O'Brien, but he fumbles it and leaves Niall Guyden in the clear to kick an easy point. But I think Charlie Redmond was lucky to get away with the tackle on Gareth O'Brien when the ball had come down.
2 goals and a point separating the sides at the moment. Jerry Hargan touching it on the ground. Free kick which Mark Plunkett wants to take quickly. And again the referee very quick in penalising him 13 metres. Just a little bit more favourable for one of the free kickers to take. It's going to be Brendan Lowry who kicks them with the right boot. 2 points already from frees, his tally for the half. And again he cuts it back to a 2-goal difference. So Offaly would believe, I'm sure, that the cause is far from lost. So here he across the field towards Paul Curran. Thomas Davis man looking up and dropping it in. Vinnie Byrne comfortably under it, takes it securely. Pádraig Moran now. Again Curran, make amends, cleaning up on the half-back line. Paul Curran, fine young prospect who's happiest in the half-back division. Of course, for much of the league he was centre half-back, but today right half-back. So free kick in the 8th minute of injury time, which Paul Clark will take. Nicely directed, and it's gone over the bar. Well, they may not have happened for him from free kicks in the league semi-final, but they're certainly happening this afternoon as he extends Dublin's lead with an expertly taken kick.
Paul Clark is a very, very good free taker for his club Whitehall, and again he's showing that from long range there. But the Offaly backs again seem to be panicking with that ball coming down.
So Paul Clark's second point of the first half, the final piece of action, and action really dominated by Dublin by and large. A goal after about 10 seconds from Pádraig Doherty, added to by Charlie Redmond 7 minutes later. 2 critical scores setting up the Dublin for a very, very successful first half. And at half-time, it's Dublin 2 goals and 6 points, Offaly 5 points. Driven to the centre where there's 3 or 4 Dublin players grouping well. Eamon Heary on towards Paul Clark. Taking it round Peter Brady's despairing challenge. Inside towards Desi Farrell, couldn't hold it. Flight kicked away by Pádraig Moran. That's Jack Sheehy advancing on a tight angle. Charlie Redmond watching as the ball remains in play. Supply inside again towards Desi Farrell. Bounces away from him, comes back. Against Pádraig Moran, the substitute is left him for dead. A scoring chance, and it's availed of by a very clever Desi Farrell. Well, I think that's his second point in this match, although my notes are quite sodden following the torrential rain.
Ball played across again from the right-hand side by Charlie Redmond. Good ball for a forward, driven in low, and Desi Farrell is giving a run around to Tom Coffey and the same to Pádraig Moran, and a very good point from him.
So we're now 6 minutes into the half, and it's looking routine for Dublin as Guyden tries to wrestle that away from Finbar Cullen, who's quite vexed, and it spills over. It's always been simmering, this match. Quickly boiled over there, and the referee deciding to throw the ball in between the 2 number 8s, Pádraig Dunn and Paul Clark. Touched by Paul Clark off the Dubliner, so it's going to be an Offaly ball.
Well, again, an off-the-ball incident there, but it was a free to Dublin, there was no doubt about that. Niall Guyden had possession first of all, and he threw up his shoes, boots, and probably caught Finbar Cullen, which led to the spot of trouble, but Offaly player shouldn't have got involved.
That's Brady belting it across into the clear. Driven forward by Mick Devine on towards Mark Plunkett for Offaly against Jerry Hargan. Securely fetched by Heary onto Tommy Carr. Dublin like this trend of twisting the ball out of trouble, then the long relieving punt down towards Vinnie Murphy, chest high, the kind of ball he loves to turn into a score. Well, that was textbook football by Dublin, freeing themselves from the danger at one end, intricate little passing movement, then the long ball forward, chest high for Murphy, and a very fine score.
Bad mistake by Mark Plunkett, should have gathered that ball, and Dublin attacked very quickly. A couple of fisted passes, show off awfully how it should be done. A long ball from Eamon Heary, and Vinnie Murphy is one of the best target men in the country, and then when he gets it, very easy point for him.
That's Peter Brady. Again, Offaly persisting with playing him at midfield, where they're trying to gain parity. They win the free kick. On Offaly's side, a pale complexion of the side that started in terms of positions. Mick Devine now back centre half back, where he played in the championship last year against Meath. Facing the pressure again from Dublin. That's Pádraig Doherty. Nice fetch. Being allowed some latitude by Vinnie Byrne. Doherty once again back in towards Paul Clark. Well, there's so much to admire about the Dubliners' play, and that's another point for Paul Clark. I'd imagine he's got about 3 at this stage.
Again, Dublin playing fairly straightforward football, getting the ball up quickly into attack and supporting the player in possession all the time. And Paul Clark, who has been excellent all through midfield for Dublin, also a very good scorer whenever he gets forward.
And that's Brendan Hackett in his second term as team coach, and really his side in a perilous position now. They made a wretched start and they've never really recovered. Finbar Cullen, whose father Tommy was right half forward for Offaly, the team beaten by Down back in the 1961 final. Watching as Seamus Dunn kicks, and that's nicely over the bar. So the substitute from Walsh Island brought in for the start of the second half in a rearranged forward line. And Offaly now making another change, their final throw of the dice, as it were. Joe Hughes has just come in.
Very few of the Offaly players have been able to do this all afternoon, and it's taken Seamus Dunn, a substitute, to do it. A great point from a very narrow angle, but Dublin very much in control.
Offaly's first point of the second half, taking 10 minutes to produce. But again, they're attacking And again there's a chance of a goal here, and it's rattled in splendidly. Well, it's just what the game requires, and Vincent Clappy from Doom, the goal scorer, rounding the defence. For once, the Dubs at 6s and 7s.
Well, I suppose a goal gives Offaly a ray of hope. Bounces off Kieran Walsh, a little bit unlucky, and puts it through there to Vincent Claffey. Probably takes a lot of steps, but I think he was impeded anyway, and a good goal for Offaly, but Dublin still very, very much in control of the game and very far in front.
This is Ken Keelan. Started life at centre-half back this afternoon, but with Dublin showing superior form in the inside forward line, he's been very quickly moved back in to mark this man here, Vinnie Murphy. He allows him too much latitude yet again. Second time in the second half, and Vinnie Murphy simply pops it over the crossbar. Wide outside towards Peter Brady. Picks up a lot of good positions. He's kept them moving at midfield, Brady. That's Jerry Hargan letting it drop down. Picked up, and again it's Brendan Lowry off the post and outside, and one that really should have gone over the bar.
Good chance of a score there for Offaly, even a chance of a goal. As substitute, Sims Dunn seemed to be free on the other side of the goal mouth, but Brendan Lowry went for the point and hit the post.
But the classy play has been provided by Dublin. If anything, revelling in the conditions. Fleet-footed footballers who certainly have shone. An injection of pace by Dessie Farrell. Jersey pulled by Ken Keelan. Free kick to Dublin. Guyton, the one who was fouled, taking it himself across here to Pádraig Doherty. Another goal chance, perhaps. Vinnie Murphy now opting to fist, and he's put it over the bar, feeling that he didn't really have the chance of belting that one in. So 3 points now in the second half for the Trinity Gales leader. Paul Clark. Good ball inside, directed towards Pádraig Doherty, held instead by Ken Keelan, outside towards Peter Brady. Oh, it's a poor ball by Brady. It's a little bit too casual. They're not all on the same wavelength. Doherty teeing one up here for Jack Sheedy. Huge kick high in the air. The umpires look at it, consider it, give their verdict, raising the white flag. A point for Jack Sheedy. Well, they certainly thumped it up into the atmosphere.
Again, Dublin hold on to the ball very well. Pádraig Doherty there plays around until he gets somebody loose and gives it to Jack Sheedy. And probably the best point of the afternoon, 45 metres out, and very, very high and long, and considering a wet ball, it was a great kick.
Well, I think if we were trying to market the sport abroad, you wouldn't be showing the last couple of minutes of this match. That's Peter Brady with 5 minutes to go. And again the whistle sounds. The whistle has sounded about 4 times in the last 15 seconds. Well, Offaly, I'm sure now, will try to blast one in. So a rearguard action by the Dubs. And Davy Reynolds is a very strong fellow. That's 6 on the goal line, including John O'Leary. 2:16 to 1-7. Surely he'll try and put one past the defence here. Comes off the goalkeeper's foot, goes high and goes over the bar. McDeegan was there as well. And between John O'Leary and Deegan, they conspired to deny Davy Reynolds the goal he was seeking. So some of the fans in the background behind John O'Leary's goal, and indeed on all sides of the terraces, deciding to seek out the security and warmth of their cars and buses and whatever else, perhaps their fireplaces as well if they live locally. The Offaly fans have certainly endured this afternoon. Dessie Farrell and his forwards have lorded it over their backline. Pat Gilroy, nice presence of mind to see that Paul Clark had stayed forward in a right half forward position, and he finishes it off in classical style, piling on the agony on an Offaly team that have really looked quite disjointed. Guyton finding Heary, and Tommy Carr coming out of his back line. And that is that. Tommy Carr's side advanced to the next round of the Leinster Championship with a fire-powered performance. Goals in the first half by Doherty and Redmond, setting themselves up nicely. And the Dublin fans will retire home happy in the knowledge that they're looking good for this Leinster Championship. Their next assignment will be against Wexford in a couple of weeks' time. But this afternoon it finished at O'Connor Park, Dublin the Masters by 2-17 to Offaly's 1-9.
We came down to the unknown, really, not knowing very much about Offaly except when Meath put them out last year. So it worked well for us. I'm happy. It was a comprehensive win, and we played reasonably well.
Well, we were training there during the week, and the downpour was thunder and lightning, which probably got us used to that. And we all today, for the first time, probably all had gloves going on. And I don't think there was too many balls that were squirted out of fellas' hands today. But I think the fact that we had trained during the week in the rain was maybe a factor in that our handling was a little better than theirs.
Your inside forward line was getting a good supply of the ball was hit in early and often, and they were making great use of it.
Yeah, the two lads inside, Vinny had them going very well, and we stuck away some very good scores, which was very important for the young lads in there to get their hands on the ball and get to know what it's about.
Because most neutral followers coming along here this afternoon felt that it was Offaly who would have to make the better start to make a match of it.
Yeah, Offaly would have needed the start that we had, and likewise we were determined to make sure that they didn't get a couple of early scores, maybe a goal early on, which would give them an awful lot, a big boost, and it would make our job very much harder.
In spite of the good football and the great scores we saw, there was some untidy, messy play as well, nasty tackles from time to time. What was it like to play in?
Very competitive. From the word goal, we got a great start to the game, getting the goal so early on. And then after that, there was a lot of late tackling off the ball instance, but like that's championship football, you're going to expect that all the time.
I've had a collision with a player and I got a knock in the head and I had to get some stitches after the game.
Do you recall anything of the incident?
No, I think it was an elbow or a hand, I'm not sure.
It's the first time I've seen an official come off and need retention like that.
I think so, yes.
You're feeling okay now, are you?
Right, yeah.
Well, you did a good job, well done.
Thanks very much.
So, Dublin over an anxious first hurdle in the championship. For Offaly, well, I'm afraid it's back to the drawing board after two heavy successive championship defeats now. Let's take a look at the statistics from today's match. There was quite a lot of frees in today's match, 41 in fact overall, with Offaly, the greater sinners, conceding 26 as against Dublin's 15. The sides were equal with a number of wides, with 7 misses each at the target. There was also 7 players had their names taken in the match, 4 Dublin players and 3 from Offaly. Well, right then, much to talk about in a game that wasn't always played in the best championship spirit. Let's hear the views of our Sunday game football analyst, Colm O'Rourke.
It really is very difficult to gauge just how good this Dublin side is, how much progress they've made from last year.
Well, Dublin's main problems, I suppose, in the games with Meath last year is that they had enough possession during all the games, but just didn't finish us off because they had some problems up front. And they seem to have sorted out those fairly well. And in difficult conditions today, wet ball and a bit of a breeze, they scored 2-17. A lot of that came from play, so it seems as if they have sorted out a lot of their problems up front. And I think Dublin will be heartened by the performance in the full forward line, particularly of Vinnie Murphy, who gave an outstanding display. And Desi Farrell was also very effective there. Both of those players seem to always have the legs of their men and were always out in front. And all the possession that they got, they held it up, either to score themselves or feed it off to other Dublin players who did a lot of very intelligent running off the ball.
But of course, Meath last year, they closed down Dublin's forwards time and again and made life difficult for them to get easy scores. This afternoon, against an Offaly defence who were profligate in the way they marked, certainly scores came easily, as illustrated by the 2 goals.
Yes, well, the first goal, of course, was a disaster for Offaly because it was a bad mistake by Vinnie Byrne. A high kick in from Paul Clark, and he probably should have got it, and then when it fell to Pádraig Doherty, it was relatively easy to stick it in the net. The next one then by Charlie Redmond was a very good follow-up by Charlie because he came running onto a ball that broke. I suppose you could say that maybe he was lucky that it broke into his hands, but his marker wasn't around. He should have been covered and back along with him, and Charlie stuck it away very, very well, right into the corner of the net. So Dublin used the goal chances. They stuck them away very, very, very cleanly and effectively, and from then on it was a no contest.
There appeared to be something of a needle as well from time to time in this game. Was that caused by the conditions, by the frustration of the Offaly players, or what caused it?
Well, it was a poor game of football as well, but bad conditions shouldn't be used as an excuse for bad football. Dublin played all the good football, and there was a bit of niggling, but you will expect that in a championship match. Dublin would have come down here, and coming to Tullamore at any time always seems like a difficult proposition. It didn't end up like that, but players go into a match very committed, especially the first match, and Dublin would have wanted to get rid of the memories of last year, and they did so very effectively. They buckled down to their task very well, and especially in view of the fact that the match was delayed for 15 minutes. Their team was on the field for practically a half an hour before it, and I'd say the Dublin management will be very impressed by the fact that they seem to hold their concentration very well during that spell.
The referee was a very busy man as well, apart from getting injured during the game because of the number of personal fouls.
There was a lot of personal fouls. I think referees more or less have given up on the idea of putting people off for personal fouls. A lot of the fouling was high and maybe slightly dangerous. There was nothing that bad, I think, that you could have sent a player off for.
Well, Colm, have things effectively settled down following last weekend? I understand, for instance, that Meath have taken themselves off to County Clare for a game of football today.
Well, I suppose it's a piece of rehabilitation after the shock of last Sunday. Even though we have been together for 5 or 6 years and have been relatively successful in that time, there was a feeling of acute disappointment among the players, something which rivaled any of the All-Ireland defeats that we have experienced. Even though it was only a first round, people will say, well, she shouldn't take it too bad, it was only the first game. But it's the end of the championship for us, and it's another year before we can play in it again. And it's a long summer without county football, which we've become accustomed to and growing to like very much.
You mentioned a spell during that match where Meath were in the ascendancy and just couldn't transfer that or translate it into scores. And is that maybe at the root of some of the excuses guys are throwing up now and saying, well, maybe we'll consider calling it a day or whatever?
Well, I suppose if one looks realistically at the situation, Meath have gone back quite a bit over the last 2 or 3 years. We had a few chances last Sunday. We got a couple of very good goal openings. We didn't take them, and Laois got theirs and took them. And Laois hung into the game and fought very hard and were very, very tenacious. So I suppose nobody can take it away from them. There's a lot of very good players in the Laois team, and they've got nothing out of it. So it's very disappointing for us, though. Very, very disappointing.
Yes, disappointment indeed for Colm O'Rourke and his Meath colleagues. But as you said there, well, I'm sure they won't be too concerned about that down in Laois. Well, now let's go back to today's game then, and the Telecom Éireann man of the match selection. And Colm O'Rourke's choice was Dublin midfielder Paul Clark, who gave a sterling performance in difficult circumstances today. Well, right now we take another break. Still to come, action, football from